ReefDudes is sponsored by Brightwell Aquatics and Bulk Reef Supply.
Today we're getting an update on the WaterBox 7225. What's going on, guys? Devin from ReefDudes. So today we are going to do an update on the Waterbox Peninsula. It's been up for over 2 years now, and I figure it's time to do a good update. I know it's been a month or two, so let's get to it. Now, as anyone with the Reef Tank knows, this is kind of an ever-evolving process. You're always upgrading, tweaking, changing, and playing with things. So the tank has definitely evolved over time. Now, not a big change at the moment, but one of the things I've been doing recently is cleaning up the sand bed. For whatever reason, I decided, that it was starting to look too cluttery, and I wanted that kind of mental cleanliness of seeing that nice white pristine sand bed. So I've been working on moving a lot of the frags that were on the sand bed and moving them over to the base of the rocks. Now, I'm kind of looking around on a lot of these, even this. At one point I had a big clam, unfortunately something ate and I lost that, so that freed up this base. But because of that, there's a lot of these frags that I've been moving kind of like butting up either against the rocks or mounting them on the rock specifically. You can see like the Space Invader, a lot of these little guys are on there. And I do really think it does look a lot better having more of that sand bed space clean. Now, as you can see, the sand bed isn't quite pristine, so I might invest in getting a few more sand bed little cleaning creatures to help maintain it and keep it a little more white for me. Coming over, we got the grafted Monty. This guy is growing very well. It's starting to get all the cool layered plate look to it. Coming over, we do have this really cool gold guy. I don't even know what the heck it is. Got it from a buddy ages ago. You can see one little chunk I broke off and I moved it to the office tank. And this little mushroom down here, again, another one I don't quite know what it is. Got it from a buddy. Has little pink edges and has little like bounce little bubbles on it, but super cool. It's growing very well in the tank. Now, one side you don't see a lot is this back corner. Now, because this is at the top of the stairs, it's a little more work to get to. So I figured we'd check out some of the stuff over here. That little rock flower right there was one that spawned in the tank and is starting to grow and have really cool coloration. So it's going to be a beauty. It's kind of a shame it's hidden and tucked away back up here, but either way, I think it's going to be a little all-star. Now below it is a lot of my Euphilia. So this is something, again, that you don't see as much because it's kind of tucked away in the corner. I think I'm going to go through and frag a bunch of this stuff up and move, probably half of it to my office tank and then just open up this again. You can see a lot of it is grown up against the glass, and I'd really like to free up that space and have that couple inches of barrier between the glass. So I think that's might be a project for this week. Now, one thing you can see from over here is the rainbow clove polyps. Those guys are really growing in and filling in that space. Those guys are super cool, and surprisingly the SPS don't really seem to care. I was wondering if they'd affect the acros, but I don't really see any tissue recession around them, so that's always a good sign. Now, tucked in the middle of my rock work is another Duncan Colony. Now this one's actually a bit different than this guy, but you don't really see it because it's kind of hidden in the rock, so I think I might pull that one later, give a little more open space in this tank and move it to the office tank. Coming over, you can kind of see things are growing into each other everywhere, and for the most part there isn't too much warfare, which makes me happy. Below it we have all the utter chaos. Now some of these heads are massive. It is crazy how much they've been growing in the last little while, but they look super cool seeing those big pally heads. And above it, in between the blue stag, look at that little frag of the forest fire digi. I don't know why, but mine never has those yellow tips, and I'm starting to see them come out now. And I don't know if it's because of all the trace helmets and stuff I'm dosing, but I've always wondered why they've been red and I haven't had that extra color, and it's nice that I'm starting to see it now. Next over here, the Cyphastria. At one point a lot of this was dying off. You can see most of it's regrowing back over now. And on top of that, we got the Freak Hair Leptosierra. That guy's kind of doing a nice little border right beside the Cyphastria. So it's kind of nice to see that they're existing side by side. Now looking through the void here, we also got a pink Ghani, and that one's kind of tucked away. You almost don't even notice it because it's kind of mounted in the middle of the rocks. This is one I might try and find a better spot for. Maybe I'll frag in half, make it smaller, and put a little bit in the other tank as well. Now if we come up a little bit more, we got the Reef Raft Golden Rod. Now this is an Anacropora, which Anacropores I think are super cool. Really nice gold color with little tiny red polyps. Now I got a tiny little frag of that guy, and that's been growing really well in this tank, so it's definitely a happy one. Coming over to the Torch Garden, you can kind of see this guy, my Dragon Soul. It actually had one head in the middle that bit the dust, so I went to go frag it out and ended up breaking the colony. So then I kind of see I glued the one on the side, so there's two chunks now, still tons of heads. No idea why the one head that was kind of directly in the middle bit the dust. Not sure if someone's picking on it, but either way, at least the rest of them are happy for now. Now down here, they're closed up at the moment, but those are fat Head Dendros. These are one I want to really try getting to grow. They are kind of like a sun coral, but they seem to be a lot easier, not quite as finicky. And I had one way back when, and it almost died on me, and one of the little heads started to come back. Now you can see I got two now, so I'm hopefully trying to focus on feeding these guys a little more frequently, and hopefully we'll get some more growth coming out of them. Coming to the side here, we got another Anacropora. This one's orange, another super cool one. I've started to mount a few different corals on the side of the Zoa Island just to get a little more branches on this end. On those little nubs, you can kind of see the super tiny little Marvin the Martian one I have there as well, so that one's slowly encrusting and growing. If we come back around to the end cap, this is one of my favorite views. Absolutely love being able to just look down the length of the tank and see all of that depth. I think that's one of the coolest parts of the peninsula, is just some of the extra little views, and you'll see the multiple sides of the tank. Really happy with how much of the sand bed I'm starting to see again. So again, I'm going to work a little more at that and see what else we can get cleaned up. This plate has got absolutely massive recently. This used to be tiny, and now this is probably, the size of like a small plate. Now like the thing is absolutely huge. But it's super happy. It's really cool color striations in it, so definitely a happy one. Moving over, we got the Ghani Island. Everyone loves Ghanis. These guys look awesome, especially when they're all flowing and the flow together. Those big tentacles everywhere. Now the one thing I will say, I slightly regret mounting that one guy at the top of the rock, because he more or less killed off the one acro that was there from stinging it. So you can kind of see a lot of the new growth is growing away from it. So that is kind of one lesson learned. I would make sure I mount them lower or further away from anywhere that there is acros. But at least there's a little bit of stuff growing back, and hopefully that will kind of grow away from it and regrow. These green zoas have been growing a little bit crazy. Again, this might be one I might have to frag off a bit. You can kind of see they've grown a couple inches more to the right. Up above that, we got the dragon, red dragon, deep water acro. I did frag a big chunk of that corner off. I was starting to grow onto other stuff, so that one got a definite little haircut. Still tons and tons there. If you can remember one of my last tank update videos, I had some of the fox flame that I was losing, so I did frag off that middle chunk, and you can see it is growing back over where it died off, which is always awesome to see. So should be back in no time. There's lots of new little heads, gross, poking up all over the place, those little coralites, so I think we'll have a bunch of branches again soon. Coming back over, notice one of my blue stags broke off, so that's on the sand bed, so after the video I'll have to mount that back up. That guy's normally on the side there. So it might be a bit of an excuse to find either a new home for it or see where else I can mount it. I'm starting to have the problem where stuff is growing too close to the glass, and it might get smacked with the algae scraper, and that's usually when I trim stuff is if it's going to hit the algae scraper, or if I'll usually frag it off a bit because I like to have that couple inches of separation. Coming up above it, this guy has been really taking off lately. Never remember the name of this guy, but it's the one on the Tropic Marin bucket. That's basically all I remember, but check the old Instagram post and figure out what that one was called. Now it is slowly killing off the Sunset Monty behind it as it expands its territory. Now the sunset's growing all around and providing some really cool bright orange around the rocks, that's okay. And above it we of course have the rainbow loom, and this guy has been growing onto the overflow wall, which I think is super cool. And the really cool part is I'm starting to get branches out of it. So if we zoom in there, you can see branches starting to grow to the wall, so I think that's going to be super cool when I start getting random branches and the whole wall is like green and purple. So it'll be pretty cool. I mean, of course, once it hits the overflow teeth, it's going to be a little more work to trim it, maintain it, but I think it's going to look really cool if I get a bunch of branches growing out of there. So that one's been a really good grower for me. Like Rainbow Loom has definitely been awesome. Now when we come down to the equipment side of things, there's definitely been a few changes here lately. So down below here we've gotten a little crazy on the auto tester front, which I'm not going to lie is pretty awesome, but we currently have the Alkatronic, the Trident, which is a new addition, and the Mastertronic. So between all three of these I definitely have my testing covered, which is pretty awesome. Trident is doing the default right now, so 4 elk tests a day and twice a day for calcium mag. The Alkatronic is doing elk every 8 hours. And the Mastertronic is doing calcium, mag, nitrate, phosphate on Fridays, and I also do phosphate nitrate on Tuesdays. And that kind of gives me a good baseline, and it is a little overkill having the dual testers, but at the same time it's kind of nice to compare them and like spot check against each other. And so far they've been pretty consistently close, which has been great. Alkalinity wise, I believe there was about a 0.1 difference between the Alkatronic and the Trident, but they're consistently roughly the same, so that works out pretty well. Onto the dosing front. On the back of my control panel, you can see everything that's being dosed here. So I have the Brightwell Replenish, the Coral Color, the Restore, and the Chaeto Grow. So those are kind of like my broad spectrum trace elements I dose to the tank. I also do manually dose some of the Reef Moonshiner stuff to kind of tweak individual elements on top of that. And looks like these are empty, so that definitely needs a refill. But I also had, well, I guess had since it's empty, but Flatworm Stop and Coral Booster on there. So those are some that I kind of dose just to help with growth a bit. And those I was only ever dosing a half dose of it. So given that they're empty, and they've probably been empty for a while, if I have some, I'll refill it. If not, I might just take those offline for now. Now to the right of the tank, you can see a little space saver container, and that is where I keep the Alkatronic reagent, so that holds a gallon's worth and lasts quite a while. Now a little more clutter in here, but if we open up the stand, see my cool little bin I got this at the dollar store. Hook on the side of the tank, and if you're fragging or doing stuff, super handy. So we have the filter roller. This is the Clarity SK5000. Beside of it, we got the NIAS 220 skimmer. And you can see it's full of all kinds of nasty skimmate. And on top of it, we have the super cheap, super ghetto, but works very well, CO2 Scrubber. So if you haven't watched that video, I'll link that one above. But basically, it's a Tupperware container full of soda lime media. And it's super simple design. You don't really have to worry about moisture on it because it's on top of the skimmer. And it has moist air because it's coming directly from the skimmer lid, so it works pretty well. And on this side, you can see when you open it, instantly lit up. I'm going to add some to the other side as well, but another super cheap little automation is I bought some of these little sensor LED lights off Amazon. Super cool. They are magnetic, so you put the sticky bit on top. They're USB rechargeable, so you don't have to deal with batteries, and they're motion. So whenever you open the cabinet, it just lights up. So super duper cool. If you guys do want some, I will link those, of course. On this side, you can see we have our Refugium with the Prime Fuge, and below it we go into a bunch of media. Stuff runs through my reactor, which is currently running mainly Royal Phos. I might have put a smidge of carbon there, but Royal Phos is what I mainly run through it. And of course, we've got the return pump. We've got all our probes, which I just recently calibrated, and back up to the tank. Now, off of the return pump, there's a couple things teed off. So the first one is our media reactor, and the second one is our UV. Now you may have remembered in a prior video I did on the UV, I realized I put the Neptune flow sensor on, I realized I had very low flow through it. So one of the things I did recently is I upgraded this from the 1/2 inch to the 3/4 inch tubing. So that just definitely gives me a lot more flow going through it. I haven't put a flow sensor on it, but it's way more than I used to have. And we go into the last cabinet, and hey, more cabinet lighting. Super handy little lights. I've actually put those in my closet and all over the place, but yeah, I'm gonna add some more to the other side of the tank later. Super duper handy. So inside of here has probably been the most changes over the last month or so since my last update. We of course have the Avast Calcster. You can see how cloudy it is inside. So I mean, it's not quite a slurry, but it's borderline if you look at how high the cloud is to the nozzle drips into the tank. Now, I did mention it before, but I added a bunch of zip ties to the shaft, mainly around the bottom, but it just helps agitate it more and kind of keeps stuff a little more suspended inside of it. And I find that works pretty well because my pH has been pretty solid lately. We look behind it, we got the calcium reactor. I did take the second chamber back out. I did add a bunch of that media to the main chamber. Now on top of that, you might notice I also added the dose. So since I added the Trident to the tank, I also added the dose, and I've been letting it do some Trident controlled dosing. So down below it, we have the Aquamax container, which is full of the Brightwell Alkalinity, the 8.3p, or the Alkaline 8.3p, basically the one that helps boost your pH some more. And I have this one dosing during my low point in the day. I believe it's currently around 30 mils in my low point, just to kind of help boost up the alk a little bit more and help boost up the pH a bit. So if we take a look at here, so my pH lately, so you can kind of see currently 8.28, my low has been 8.23, and my peak was about 8.332-ish. So it's been really solid lately, and
overall I've been really happy with how I finally got up to. You can see that one big drop, that's when I accidentally unplugged my skimmer. But aside from that, it's been pretty solid pH numbers. 8.23 is my current elk. You can kind of see it's fairly consistent on what my elk does. You know, a low of 8.03 last night and all the way up to 8.29. So there's about a 0.27 swing. So I am trying to work on leveling that out. And it seems that basically 6 p.m. to midnight is my low. So I think what I'm going to do is adjust my trident controlled dosing window, and we'll do it somewhere from around noon to midnight-ish, and hopefully that will fill in that gap a bit more. Now, lighting wise on the tank, I do have the 5 Radion XR30s. I did have the 15s, which are probably enough. 30s are probably overkill, but the amount of spread from these is absolutely insane, especially with all the overlap. So they're only running at 35%. Like, there is a ton of room for these lights to expand in the future. I mainly did it for the spread and the coverage, and right now obviously it's not even a consideration of like needing that extra spread, but one day when the colonies grow in, then I think that extra spread is going to be really good. You know, I mean, they're starting to grow in, but you know, when it's wall-to-wall acros, just hopefully getting that underside shadowing and improve growth and health of the corals overall. Now, the other benefit of having overkill lighting and then running them really low is it keeps them super quiet because you're barely pushing them, so that's kind of a nice little side effect of it. Fish-wise, there's been no real changes. It's been the same crew in here for quite a while. I haven't really made any new additions. Anything new I add is likely just going to be into the office tank. But there you go, guys. Here is a bit of an update on the WaterBox 7225 Peninsula tank. If you guys enjoyed this, as always, make sure to smash that like button. If you're new, make sure you subscribe. And if there's any questions I didn't answer, let me know in the comments below. Alright guys, happy Monday and happy reefing.